Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel. It might have occurred to you that it seems an odd way to open up the video for today when you are staring at lots of cans. We got a hairdryer and a heat gun. If you are new to the channel, you might not be entirely sure why this is this is in the camera. But if you are not new to having to wake up or get moving again an old sewing machine, this will actually make a lot of sense. Today I want to talk to you about what do you do when your machine is stuck. And when I say stuck like glue, occasionally it happens. And we're going to talk about some of the methods, and I'm going to demonstrate some of them today, or at least an initial one today, to see if we can get the machine moving. The machine that I'm referring to is this one right here. This is a late 60s, early 70s. I'm guessing this might be this Kenmore that you see here. It's probably, I want to say 1969, 1970. They're still using this sort of neutral, it's not really an avocado, it's more like a sort of a green sage gray color, for lack of a better term. And anyway, this machine is not one I purchased. In fact, this particular model was brought to me by clients because if I have anyone locally that needs overhauling of their machine, I also work on their machines. I don't just work on those that I rescue. And so someone saw a posting that I had for one or two of my machines for sale, and they saw the list of work I did, and they thought, oh, they reached out to me. This does occasionally happen. People find me through my own listings, but they're actually looking for help with the machine they already have. And of course, along with these penetrant oils that you see here, this is my bottle of sewing machine oil. So I'm going to talk to you about how do you unlock things, right? What does that mean, and how do you go about it? So I guess it's first important to remember that it depends on how bad it is. One of the most difficult machines I've ever worked on was a Pfaff, and it looked beautiful. In fact, it looked like it had hardly been used because it hadn't been. And the person who was gifted this machine when it was brand new didn't like it for whatever reason, and they used it for a few projects and they put it up in their attic. And it sat there for 20 years. So what happens to sewing machine oil, which is the most wonderful lubricant for a sewing machine to use, and yet it can cause problems only when a machine sits still. You know the old saying, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Well, if a sewing machine doesn't move, it's going to gather moss and get sleepy, as I like to say. So how bad is it? Basically, the general gist here is that the more stuck and frozen a machine is, sometimes you need more. You have to take extra measures to unlock it. You also have to be careful that you don't damage it when you unlock it. And I've talked many times about how you protect things like the knobs and levers, because you always go behind the machine, and you go behind it when you have the lid off, and you go back, and of course you get the metal behind the knobs moving, and that helps you prevent any damage to the control pieces on the front, which are often plastic, and they're glued often to metal, and they work quite well. In fact, I've almost never had them fail, except when they are forced by people who do not know better. So now that you're seeing this video and many others like it that I've shown, you do know better. So anyway, these good folks brought this machine to me. Now, they did have some of the history of the machine. They are not the original owners, but they purchased this machine 20 years ago and then kind of set it aside and didn't focus on it. But I don't know if they bought it. Maybe they bought it from someone. But here's the thing about this machine. It was kind of stiff. It was pretty stiff, I believe, if I remember correctly, when they bought it. I am going to make an assumption here, and I think it's a pretty safe one, that this machine at a minimum has not been used in 30 years and possibly more. Remember, this is a 1970 machine, so it's over 50 years old. And it could have had some use, probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years, whatever. But when something has sat this long, it doesn't go well for the machine, because the oil that was used to lubricate the machine has oxidized. Oil doesn't evaporate the way solvents do, like alcohol. They evaporate very quickly. But oil can take decades to. Essentially, what happens is it polymerizes. It basically, over time, oxygen eventually causes it never really turns to a solid, but it gets kind of greasy, and then it becomes like a sticky, tacky glue. And when you're dealing with parts that are very tightly engineered to be moving close together, that creates the glue situation that we're going to try to fix here. Now, I'm not kidding myself to think I'm just going to go in here and, we'll just take a little, 20 minutes and we'll be done. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's going to take more than this. So, watch when I turn. Watch the needle right here. In fact, let's zoom in just a bit. And I'm going to put my hand here over in the right. You see it in the right screen. And I'm just turning the hand wheel. I'm going to turn it toward me, which is what I should do. And as I do, notice, I'm pushing, and I'm barely getting any movement. And this is the vertical movement, by the way. This is not the zigzag. This is for straight stitch, which I've mentioned to you all before. The last movement in a machine to gum up and freeze is always the vertical one. The zigzag will often freeze first before the other movements do. Now, make sure you can actually see me put my hand here. So I'm putting it toward me, and I'm really getting a ton of resistance. And it's a ton. In fact, sometimes, first I thought the little clutch knob was maybe not engaged properly, but it is. But at some point, it just doesn't want to move. I'm getting very little, if any, movement from the needle. When this happens, that is the clear sign that you want to just stop. There's no purpose. The owner had tried plugging it in, and they could hear the motor running, but of course the belt would just slip because there just is not enough power to overcome the gluing that has taken place. But we're going to try to fix that. Now, I have a pan here, and you'll appreciate a little later why I have it. Just a quick hint, it is connected to the heat gun. So let's take the machine, and we're going to tilt it back, and I'm going to turn it on its back side, because I want you to look under here. Now, it's interesting, you cannot always tell if a machine is stuck by just looking at, a visual inspection. What I'm seeing here is something many of you may have seen before, and yet you don't, your machine may move just fine. But you see all of these brown, let me zoom in here for you. See all these they're sort of amber colored areas? These amber colors, this is old machine oil. This is not rust. And the way you know this, if this was rust, and sometimes you'll have rust and old oil mixed in together, right? If there's any pitting, I don't know if you saw this, but I just took, let me zoom in, and I think maybe you'll be able to see even better. Okay, so I took my thumbnail, and look at that. I just slid that right off. Did you see that? Now we can see down to the metal. If that were rust, it wouldn't have come off that easy. I would have to really get in some polish and try to do that. And what is interesting about this is that there is one silver lining behind all of this goo that's basically stopping our machine from working, and that is this. On pieces of the undercarriage or any piece of steel that is not painted, it's often either plated or it's some sort of steel or alloy. What happens is any oil that has coated it in some ways actually protects it from oxidation. That's especially important if it was ever stored outdoors or in a basement, which I don't know that this one was. I don't really see any indication that it was. But this is the thing. When you have this old oil that becomes a varnish, it actually acts as a sort of coating to protect the steel from rust. So that's its only redeeming factor. What we are most concerned with here is areas where metal and metal meet, where metal is moving against metal. That's where the old oil is causing the problem, because it's basically gluing the machine and preventing it from working. And so what we need to do is we need to take care of that. And there are different ways to go about it, thus all of the little tools and cans you see here today. So in the past, I've had machines that were just slightly stiff, barely. And all it took, you could take, if you're very careful with rubbing alcohol, do not get it on your paint. You will be very sorry. It will damage your paint. I promise you. Don't do that. But if you can take precautions, particularly on the undercarriage here, and you could try, some drops of alcohol, right? So I am going to start with that. And I don't remember if I covered this several years ago in my Tools of the Trade video, or whatever I called it, Tools and Accessories. But I found this in a store. It was like not a dollar store, but a surplus place. And I think you can get, this is glass, but they come in plastic. And this, of course, is what we typically call an eye drop, thing. It's used for, originally in the old days, you used it for your eyes. But I think I'd give 99 cents for this thing. But I like it because there are times when I have things that don't come in containers, like my sewing machine oil that gives me a nice little oiler, or a way to apply the liquid. So what I'm going to do with this, it's not very big, but I don't need much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I have some 99%, where is it here? It's hard to read on this label, but 99% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. Again, do not get this near your paint. If you are working on the top side of the machine, be sure to lay lots of towels. Do not do that. You will be sorry. It's not going to damage the machine for sewing, but it will definitely cause changes in your paints, particularly the black ones, but any color. And, aesthetics matter. So we want to be careful with that. Okay, so I'm going to put, not over any type of electrical device. Let's come over here. And just to be extra cautious, I'll do it over I have this little, this is just an aluminum sheet pan here. So I'm going to take my alcohol, I'm going to put it in this little bottle. And that's all. In fact, that's way more than I'm actually going to need. I'll probably end up pouring it back out because I don't use this dropper very often. Thankfully, I don't need to. So we'll get this all put together. Now, one of the things to note, typically what I have done in the past is I would take either sewing machine oil, and I would try to get the machine to turn. Oil by itself is not going to undo this machine. It is too stiff. I can sit here and put oil here, but I already know I don't need to test that, because if it's that stiff, you're going to need more than the oil. The oil itself is not going to be enough. And so we're going to try something else. Now I've got the alcohol here, and let's talk a little bit about what is in these cans, right? So we have, you will see here, PB Blaster, WD-40, 3-in-1, and then liquid wrench. And if you look closely, the three of these call themselves penetrant oil. Penetrant, when you see penetrant, now WD-40 can act like one. I don't even know if they use the term penetrant here, but it can also be used that way. None of these are sewing machine oil. Neither is 3-in-1, even when you get it in a bottle. These products are not designed to lubricate your sewing machine as sewing machine oil is. So, because I get people asking me, what should I use? You use sewing machine oil for normal lubrication of your sewing machine to oil it. The reason that these penetrant products exist, you may have actually used some of these. I think WD-40 is one of the most heavily marketed of them. But many of these products you find in hardware stores, and people use them for different things. Trying to to get an old rusted lock to work again, or trying to get anything that's been seized to unseize. And they work, they have different chemistries, but they all basically work by combining oils of some sort and solvents. And that's why many of them have a smell, and none of them I find pleasant. Of all of these, the one that is the nastiest, and again, this is to my nose, is liquid wrench. And the reason is that liquid wrench has something akin to kerosene in it. Whether it is kerosene, I don't know. But it is also one of the most effective. Okay, so isn't that Murphy's Law? The one that stinks the most can be one of the most effective. But start with less than that. I don't go to liquid wrench immediately because I don't like the smell. It takes a very long time to evaporate. If you use liquid wrench, you're not, you use it an afternoon, the next day in the morning, it's not, the smell's going to be there. Kerosene is like liquid wrench on steroids. These others have different levels of smell. Now, all of us have different levels of sensitivity. What smells really bad to me might smell slightly bad to you. So this is where, your mileage may vary. You have to test this stuff yourself. You never want to take mine or anybody on the internet who says, oh, it doesn't smell bad. Well, that's great for you, but you might have a different sense. Okay? So we've got that. We've got the little dropper of isopropyl alcohol here, and of course I always have my sewing machine oil. Now what you can do is you can apply any of these liquids I've just shown you, and of course don't put them here. This is of no use. Putting it here and here, that's just aesthetics. That's not your issue. Leave this be for now. If you're interested in polishing stuff like this, you can do that. I don't, because it doesn't really affect the aesthetics of the machine when you're using it, and it has no impact on the lubrication and the free movement of the machine. And again, in the future, it might actually help preserve it against any moisture. That's not our problem. What we want to do is get the moving parts moving again, and get that glue kind of broken up. Now, you can do it in different ways. You can try the liquids and then try to move it, and some people will do that. I've done that. I've actually put the liquids on and let them sit overnight. Let them have time to kind of work their way in, and then repeatedly. I think I have a video where I did a Singer 185, and that was one of the most difficult locked up machines I've ever had. I mean, it was actually worse than this one. And I ended up immersing it in Marlboro's Mystery Oil, and oh my goodness, I came close to giving up, but I finally got it to move. It was one of those Hail Mary passes where I finally was able to save it. But I thought we'd try something different today, a different approach first. What you're seeing me hold here, you see here is a hairdryer, and then in my left hand is a heat gun. Now a heat gun is really, really hot. Hair dryers can get hot. A heat gun can get super hot. This one can go anywhere from 500 degrees Fahrenheit to 1020 degrees Fahrenheit. This is like a very sharp knife. Be very, very conservative and careful with these. Any of you who have ever used a heat gun, people use them for different things. You can really burn yourself with these things. They're really unfriendly. It happens to you once, you won't forget it. The hair dryer, you can also get burned with it, but it's not quite as intense. So what I thought I would do, either of these that I'm using, especially the heat gun, but the hair dryer as well, I have a table here that has sort of a padded vinyl cover to it. It's an old card table, and it will not survive the hair dryer, much less the heat gun. So I've got this pan that I mentioned to you. I'm going to use that to kind of help me prevent damaging anything with these very strong tools. What I'm going to do initially is I'm going to take the hair dryer and I'm going to put the hair dryer on high, which is still probably going to be a lot cooler than low on the heat gun. I'm going to move it to high, and then I'm going to start in just a moment. I'm going to start adding some heat here. And what I'm trying to do, I don't need to do it here. I'm going to add the heat to these areas where I know movement is supposed to happen, right? Just let it get a little warm. Sometimes the heat alone will allow the machine to start moving. That doesn't mean you're done, but at least you've kind of broken the locking bonds of that old oil. So I'm going to try that with the hair dryer, and then if I don't get any movement with that, I will very cautiously use the heat gun. None of these things should damage the machine's parts. They're very strong, but again, be mindful of any plastic. For example, look right here. You see this is the little flipper that holds the race cover and keeps everything along with your bobbin case in place. This we don't want sticking here. We want to move it, move it away. Do not put heat near plastic or paint. Okay, and notice over here we don't want to get any heat. Over here we have power cords here. Now the cords are insulating, but do not push heat here. You don't want to damage it because these are in great shape. We have no reason to do that. Okay. Be very focused and pay attention to what you're doing. And you don't sit here and hold it here for 30 minutes. You want to kind of apply it and kind of move around. But again, be mindful of anything that is not steel or anything that is painted, because you don't want intense heat on those materials. Okay, so I am going to, let's see here. I am going to see if I can do this. I'm going to turn down the volume so that you don't have to hear the whirring of this hair dryer. And let's see what happens. So now I just took a few minutes to do that, and of course I've got my hair dryer down on that pan. I don't want it on the vinyl. So I'm going to, and I didn't, like I say, you saw me moving it around, pointing toward the steel, away from anything that might be plastic or soft, and I can put my hand over here and the plastic feels just fine, right? It's not hot. I'm not going to touch the metal because I don't want to test how hot I got it. But if you want to test it, whether this did anything, I'm reaching my hand back here over to the hand wheel. Let's look and see if anything moves. I'm seeing a tiny bit of movement, but not much. No. So what can we do? You can actually spend more time with the hair dryer. You know that old, what is that, the old, I forget if it's the Hippocratic Oath or what, it says first do no harm. So you always want to start with the least aggressive means to fix your machine. Don't break out the big guns right away. So, and notice I haven't used any penetrant oils yet, and I may or may not need to. So I'm going to, now I'm going to try, and here we want to be extra careful. Now notice, your heat gun will have different settings if you have one. There's a 1, and there's off is in the center there with the little 0, and then 2 is where you get your 1,000 degrees. I'm not doing that. The low setting on a heat gun is extremely hot. So we need to be extra careful with this, right? We're not going to point it toward anything plastic. And I'm also, I'm not going to hold it here for 20 minutes. I just want it to get hot enough to see if we can liquefy some of the old goop, oil. It's like a varnish. It's almost like a sticky goo. And see if we can just loosen it enough to get some movement here. So I will turn this volume back off. Okay, so you may have noticed that with the heat gun, I was moving it a lot more quickly than I did with the hairdryer. And it doesn't look like I was holding it there long, but that heat it comes really quickly. So I can't emphasize that enough. Now, did it do anything? And keep in mind, so far we've only applied heat to the bottom. We haven't taken the top off yet, but I just wanted to see what it would do with the bottom. Yeah, I'm getting just a little wiggle here, but again, maybe slightly. I think I'm getting like another 5% movement. And so this again is not surprising. What can we do? Well, let's see. I'm going to try the alcohol first, and I'm going to place it. You think, well, how do you know where to place it? Well, the way you know how to place it is, remember, you want to look at areas where metal moves against metal. And if you're new to the machine, you might think, well, I don't even know where the metal moves because it's not moving. But I've seen enough machines to know this is one area right here. There's like a shaft here with some sort of cam and a cam follower. It's what I call it right there. We've got, you'll see a lot of times it'll look like a joint, right? And then, again, metal comes to metal. And I don't know if you saw this, but let's zoom in. You'll be able to see the alcohol is very thin. And so the alcohol will actually just go right in, but between the two surfaces. It's not hard to get the alcohol to wick in there because it's a very very thin liquid compared to sewing machine oil. And so what else are we doing? Again, be careful. Always remember, don't pour this out of a bottle. You're going to get alcohol everywhere and hurt your paint finish. Here, we're not hurting anything because we basically are putting a couple of drops. That's basically all we're doing. I'm not worried right now about the dropping the feed dogs. That's almost always stuck on every machine. We'll get to that later. That's not the biggest issue we've got right here. Right now we're focused on trying to get the basics going. You start with the basics, and then we can get our our feed dog drop fixed. And so I'm just putting that in there, and the alcohol is not going to stay there very long. You can also put the alcohol there before you apply heat, but because the alcohol, it doesn't stay there. It's not like it's sitting in a bowl, and I don't know that it's going to help. You could try it, but again, the alcohol, some of it's going to drip, and it's going to evaporate. So I'm just going to come back here. I'm reaching over to the hand wheel again, and again, I just put the alcohol on, not seeing really any movement. So what I can do is I can go in to the top and repeat this process. The other thing I can do, because I've already done the heat thing, I've done the heat thing here, I've done the alcohol, what else could I do? I can try a penetrant oil. So let's come back over to our oils. I'm not ready for sewing machine oil yet. I just don't see it working. I've done it before, but this machine is too stiff. It is too glued together. We've got this one. Again, I know that liquid wrench is good to put myself through the smell of it, unless I absolutely have to. I have been there before, and I have done it, and it works, but then I have to wait for the stink to go away, and I'm going to try not to do that if I can help it. And let's see. We've got 3-in-1. We've got PB Blaster. It breaks loose. They all talk about how awesome they are. So people have opinions about which one works better, and honest to God, maybe all of them are decent in some way or another. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply some of this PB Blaster. Now, if you just put the heat gun on it, don't put these things on there right away. Let it cool a bit, okay? So, it's warm, but it's not super hot because I wasn't leaving the heat gun, I wasn't holding it there for 5 minutes. That's really hot. So I'm going to go where you saw me go with the alcohol. I'm going to come back and we'll do some of the PB. Don't push all the way down. You're going to end up with stuff all over the place. And you can see it comes out. This can is full. So one little push, just a gentle push, and you're going to get some of this stuff out. And you see it looks like it's foaming, and that's in part because this is a pressurized spray can. That's why we're seeing this. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here. Now I have a catch pad here, and you're going to want to have something under your machine because you are going to get dripping of something. That's just that's probably inevitable no matter what machine you've got. That just happens. Let's see. And now once I put this penetrant oil in here, the penetrant oil is not automatic, and it is not a magic trick. It's not like you put it on and then the machine's ready to go. It's not like that. It needs to sit because, the weaker the chemical, the longer it needs to do anything if it's going to do it. So you want to be sure that you remember this and don't expect instant results. I'm hoping to get some results here, but who knows? Who knows what we're going to get? What famous character said, "You never know what you're going to get"? So again, it takes very little, and even with me just gently doing it, I've got some down here. I'm gonna be mopping up with a rag. Okay, but this is the underside of the machine. This is you can see the metal here. This is not really that vulnerable to these products, even to alcohol, because there's no paint for it to eat on. And that's why, again, we want to take care of the pretty part of our machines because aesthetics matter. They matter to everyone. Now, the longer you let this cool, the less smell you will have. Because if your machine, the warmer it is, the more you will get. As these products evaporate, they'll evaporate faster and you'll smell more of them. So again, you really have to test this before you use them because all of you out there have different levels of sensitivity. Some of these things I don't like. I don't like the smell of them, and others I tolerate better, but we're all a little different. So this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to let the machine sit. I don't want to turn it upright right away because a lot of the stuff that's working, I may end up having more of it, come down and out. I want it to stay where I put it for the moment. So let's see what happens. And in the next video, we'll take a look at the top side of the machine, and we will see if we can apply some of these same principles to the machine, but on the upper, remember that we have mechanical drivetrain below, and we also have it above. And so we need we need to hit both areas. And like I say, I'll start with the heat first up top and see if that does anything. And if not, we will add some of the PB Blaster. And again, you may have your own favorite penetrant oil. You may think one of these is better. Maybe you've had better luck. This is not a sort of the be and end all of penetrant oils here. But again, they vary in terms of how well they work. And penetrant oils can be your friend. They can really help you. But again, I'm really looking forward to summer. Just getting to springtime will be nice because I have, and some of you have been watching and waiting, I have that, as you know, that stubborn Kenmore free arm that was given up for dead, and I've held on to it and been talking about it and making videos. That machine, hopefully we're going to give it one last college try this summer to get it unlocked, permanently unlocked. But this Kenmore, in the meantime, is going to get my attention, and we will see how it goes. We will see if anything I've done here has helped. And the reason I like to do the heat before is if you put these penetrant oils on and then you apply heat, the smell will be magnified, I don't know, 10 times over, and it'll be a lot worse. So don't do that to yourself. Try to avoid that if possible. And so all of these things have a smell. They all are stinky in some way or another. So fair warning, they all are unpleasant, but to different degrees, and it just depends on your own personal olfactory senses. But thanks for watching, everyone. I don't often get a machine that is this locked up. When I do, it's often an Italian Necchi. It's much less common with Singers or Japanese machines, but this one sat, and it sat, and it sat, and it sat. It has been hibernating probably for 3 decades, but it's not broken. It's just really asleep, as I like to say. So we will see how things go, and hopefully I will be able to get it unlocked. And once I get it unlocked, then I will be taking it through all of the procedures that I do with every machine for my client. And but before I do that, I need to make sure I can get it unlocked. There's no real point in doing everything else if at the end of the day it becomes a doorstop. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in part 2.